5 mistakes is all it takes to completely lose a good gobbler before the sun even breaks the tree line on a spring morning. Almost every single turkey hunter in this whole country right now makes at least 3 of these mistakes without ever knowing it. There was a generation of men who chased longbeards hard through Appalachian ridges back in the 1960s and early 70s, when nobody was filming anything or writing any of it down at all. They never recorded these important rules in any kind of book. They just lived these hard-earned lessons every single spring morning until the knowledge became a deep part of who they were as hunters. And right now, most of what they understood about chasing gobblers is completely buried under fancy decoys and $300 vests and marketing campaigns that taught people to buy gear instead of skill. Today I'm going to hand you every single one of those silent errors one by one, so you never walk out of the turkey woods one more time, wondering what went wrong on another frustrating, empty-handed morning. If this kind of forgotten and buried hunting knowledge is exactly what you have been searching for, then hit subscribe to Lost Hunter right now and turn on notifications so you never miss a single video we release. Let us get right into the single most common and destructive mistake that has ruined more spring turkey hunts than anything else ever could. Mistake number 1 is that you set up way too close to the roost tree. This is the most common and most damaging error in spring turkey hunting, and the worst part is that it happens before the hunt even really starts. Most hunters hear that very first gobble echoing at dawn in the distance, and their instinct kicks in, immediately telling them to start moving now. They walk straight toward the sound, getting closer through the dark timber, trying to get as tight to that roosted bird as they possibly can get. That feels right in the moment, and it feels aggressive and productive. It feels like you are being proactive and actually making things happen. But that decision is actually the worst one you can possibly make out there. A tom sitting up high on a roost limb in the early minutes of first light can see well over 100 yards through open hardwood timber below him. He is perched up 20 or even 30 feet above the dark forest floor, scanning everything below him like a living security camera, with almost 300 degrees of razor-sharp vision, looking for any kind of threat. And the very second that he spots any movement at all happening down below, that does not match the natural calm rhythm of the early morning forest, he shuts his beak completely and flies hard in the total other direction. You will never hear that same bird gobble one more time that whole morning. Old turkey hunters back in the day had a rule about this that was sacred. Never set up any closer than a full 100 yards away from wherever you heard that very first gobble come from at the start of the morning. And whenever possible, try to find a terrain feature right between you two, a ridge fold or a deep creek bend or a thick solid wall of standing brush, something that completely breaks the straight line of sight between you. Sitting on the ground and that bird sitting up high on his roost branch, then you call soft and patient and you let the bird come down to you. That is exactly how those old-timers hunted gobblers for entire decades before anyone had a trail camera or a satellite map loaded on a phone. Most modern hunters today do the complete and total opposite of all this. They rush in too fast and they get way too tight to the roosted bird. They bump that gobbler right off his roost tree before the sun even rises, and then they spend the rest of the entire morning sitting around confused, wondering why the whole forest around them went completely dead and silent. This one single mistake alone has ruined more beautiful spring turkey hunts than bad weather and bad luck and bad gear combined together ever could. Mistake number 2 is that you call way too much and way too early at dawn. This is where things start to get really interesting and really important, because this is exactly where the modern outdoor industry has done some of its absolute worst and most lasting damage to turkey hunting as a whole. They sell turkey calls to hunters like they are some kind of magic buttons. Just press the right one at the right moment and the gobbler runs to you. Box calls and pot calls and diaphragm calls and shaker calls and strikers fill every single shelf in every single outdoor store across the country. A hunter can easily spend well over $200 on calls alone before the turkey season even opens up for that very first morning of it. But here is the honest truth that nobody ever puts on the product packaging. A real hen out in the spring woods does not hammer away at the same sound over and over and over again, repeating the same loud sequence every minute. She makes soft tree yelps and quiet little clucks sitting up on the branch. She sounds like she barely even cares at all whether that tom shows up. That casual and almost completely disinterested sound is the exact thing that actually pulls a gobbler in closer and closer, one careful step at a time. Not volume and not aggression, but pure, natural, relaxed, total indifference. Old, experienced hunters out in the Ozarks understood this lesson perfectly. They would call just once with only a few soft and very gentle, quiet yelps. Then they shut up completely for 10 or even 15 minutes of pure silence without touching the call or making any kind of sound at all during the wait. If the tom answered back from somewhere nearby, they would just keep waiting. If he stayed quiet, they would give one more very soft and careful sequence. That kind of real earned field patience killed more spring gobblers per year than any competition-style calling routine has ever managed to do in a decade. The real problem here is that patience does not sell any products whatsoever. Loud, aggressive calls are what sell products to excited guys before the season. New fancy sounds and brand new call designs sell millions of units every spring. And so the gear industry built an entire culture around constant overcalling and then convinced hunters that making more sound means more birds. It does not work that way, and it never has in the entire history of this sport. All it means is more empty and frustrating mornings out in the turkey woods. And the crazy part about all of this, that most guys will never even hear about, is that this is not even the best lesson those old-timers had to pass along. This is just one of the cheap and totally forgotten old tricks from the past that most people in the modern mainstream hunting world never get to hear about. There are a whole lot more buried and forgotten lessons just like this one, still hidden under expensive gear and bad mainstream advice and modern convenience. If you want the full collection of all the knowledge that got buried over time, I put every single piece of it together inside the Forbidden Hunter's Vault. The link is right there in the description waiting for you to check it out now. But stay with me here, because there is one more mistake coming up on this list that almost nobody in the whole turkey hunting community ever even talks about. Mistake number 3 is that you trust your camouflage pattern way too much more than your actual body silhouette and outline against the background. This is one of the absolute biggest lies the gear industry ever pushed on turkey hunters all across this whole country for the last 20+ years. They made you believe you need a specific camouflage pattern for spring and a completely different one for fall and another for field edges, and one more for open timber and another for every other possible terrain type. Every single year they release some brand new pattern that they claim is better than whatever you already own and paid full price for just 12 months ago. That is nothing but a marketing game designed to sell you more gear. What actually gives you away to a sharp-eyed gobbler every single time you hunt is not the color or the pretty pattern that is printed all over your jacket. It is your body shape and your physical outline sitting against the background. A turkey does not see a hunter sitting on the ground and think to himself, well, that pattern does not quite match the surrounding leaves and branches. He sees a big, round, tall shape sitting right where there was absolutely nothing. The day before, when he walked through that exact same piece of timber safely, he sees a blob that breaks the natural clean line of the forest floor and trees, and he turns right around and disappears without any second thought. Old hunters fixed this whole problem decades ago with one simple and free rule: sit with your back flat against a tree trunk that is wider than your shoulders. Tuck both knees in real close to your chest to shrink your overall shape. Pull your hat down low over your face and break up your entire body outline, so you blend right into the trunk and look like just another part of that tree. That one completely free habit is worth more than every $400 camo jacket that has ever been manufactured and sold in any outdoor store anywhere. Mistake number 4 is that you move your head at the worst possible time. This one is brutal, because it almost always happens in the very final seconds of what should have been a perfectly executed and successful spring turkey hunt. Everything went exactly right from the very first minute of that whole morning. You set up at a smart distance behind solid terrain cover just like you should. You called soft and then waited with real discipline and true patience. The bird answered back and slowly started walking in toward your setup position. You can hear him drumming and spitting now barely 30 yards from you, 25 yards away now, and closing the distance tighter every second. And right at that critical moment when you absolutely need to be a solid stone, you turn your head just slightly off to the side to try to get one better look. Just a tiny little shift of the neck that barely even feels like real movement. But that one single small motion is all it takes to completely end everything. A turkey has eyes that are specifically designed and built for detecting motion. They process movement much faster than even a white-tailed deer is able to do. They pick up color and shape and motion across nearly 300 degrees. That little turn you made just sent a danger signal louder and more clear than any single call you blew during the entire morning of hunting in the woods. Old-timers had a dead simple and reliable fix for solving this exact problem. Before the bird ever showed up, or made any kind of sound anywhere nearby at all, they pre-positioned their gun, already aiming in the exact expected direction that they figured the gobbler would most likely choose to approach them from. They kept their head completely still for the entire duration of the long wait. They tracked the incoming bird, using only their eyes, moving very slowly sideways until that gobbler stepped right into clean and ethical and responsible range. No head turning and no shoulder adjusting, and no last-second desperate scramble. Just pure patience and smart positioning set up properly from the very start. Mistake number 5 is the one that almost nobody in hunting ever even mentions. You hunt the same exact spot on 2 consecutive hunts without changing anything. A pressured gobbler remembers much more than most people would ever think. He connects certain areas and certain approach angles with danger from the past. If you sat on the north side of a field last Saturday and that bird saw you, he is going to completely avoid that exact line of approach for weeks to come. Old turkey hunters in the deep south had a smart and simple rotation system. They never hunted the same gobbler from the same angle on 2 consecutive hunts. Now let me be completely honest with you about these 5 important rules. They are powerful, but they do have real limits on heavy pressure land. The way around that is scouting midday movement routes as a second window. Here is your simple 4-step plan to put all of these lessons to work. Step 1 is scout your area at least 2 full days before you plan to hunt. Step 2 is set up no closer than 100 yards with terrain cover. Step 3 is call once softly, then wait 10 full minutes before calling. Step 4 is sit against a wide tree and only move your eyes until range. Give this method 3 consecutive hunts and the difference will be clear. If you want even more forgotten tricks, just like all 5 of these lessons, the Forbidden Hunter's Vault is waiting in the first link right below. There was a time when turkey hunting was not about the most expensive gear, or the loudest call in the vest, or the newest camo pattern on the market. It was about who truly understood how a spring gobbler thinks and moves, who watched the woods close enough to read every subtle sign it gave him, who had the discipline to sit perfectly still even when everything inside of him was screaming and begging him to move his head and take one quick look. That kind of deep-earned knowledge does not come from any store shelf anywhere. It comes from the field and from quiet mornings that taught more than gear. That is exactly the kind of hunter this channel was built and designed to serve. If this is your kind of content, then subscribe to Lost Hunter right now today, and I will see you in the very next video coming soon to this channel.